Live. My name is Jamie J. I am the CEO and co-founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants. And we're going to be going live here in just a little bit. I'm going to say about 38 seconds. So stay tuned while we go live. Hello. It's Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, but that's not why we are here today. Today, we are here to help you stop the bottleneck in your business because we're going to be talking with Melanie Parish, why leaders should spend most of their time managing bottlenecks, which I think is unbelievably and ironic. And in addition to that, why is Melanie someone that can help you stop the bottleneck in your business? Well, Melanie Parish is a public speaker, consultant, workshop leader, author, and master certified coach through the International Coach Federation, from whom she received the Prism Award. An expert in problem solving, constraints management, operations, strategic hiring, and brand development, Melanie has consulted and coached organizations ranging from a Fortune 50 company to IT startups. Her individual clients include those in FAANG and other top global IT companies. Melanie is a certified professional coactive coach and organizational relationship systems certified coach, and a theory of constraints certified Jonah. As an author, educator, and creator of the Experimental Leader Program, Melanie shows people new ways of thinking about their leadership, informed by her understanding of the fast-paced ride of technology innovation. And without any further ado, I would love to introduce you to Melanie Parish. How are you, Melanie?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping on board and getting to deal with our green room challenges initially, but we got everything sorted, and I'm excited to talk to you about why managers should focus on their bottlenecks.
Me too.
And I wonder if maybe for those of us that may not know you as well, you can give us a little bit of insight as to your background and who you are.
Sure. Well, I've been working with clients for over 20 years. My background was in sales and marketing. And I love doing it. And as I brought clients on, I started to be more in operations with them. My clients tend to stay with me a really long time. And about 15 years ago, I started coaching some people who were in IT, a guy who was like a guru in the IT world. And he started making me learn stuff around constraints and the theory of constraints and bottlenecks and continuous improvement and all sorts of stuff. And I started to realize that there was a real place for that in leadership. So I wrote a book called The Experimental Leader, where I really think about those things and I get to talk about them. And I use the book with my clients, but I also love talking to other people about all of those things.
So how did you get into the world of IT?
Well, I had this client who assured me that I didn't need to have an IT background, that I was a good problem solver. And what I realized about IT is that I think in really innovative ways. I really like thinking about IT, and I didn't have to be a technical expert to have something to contribute in that world. So they know the technology. I'm a good thought partner for helping them think through the challenges that they have, to think through, what they want to accomplish. And that sort of brings us to bottlenecks, doesn't it? But to help them figure all that out. So I don't wonder anymore. I actually decided I better, I really do work in IT. So I went to my IT conference last year by myself, which I don't know if it was a resounding success, but it was interesting. And so, it's been a really interesting journey to find myself, on the cutting edge of all sorts of things.
That's neat. So why do you say leaders need to focus on bottlenecks?
Well, I think that, so I want to just take 1 second to talk about what a bottleneck is.
Perfect. Even better.
And so I think it's the place where your business is constrained, that if you can remove it, you can leap forward. There's always a next bottleneck. Right. There's always the place that's the next constraint. And so if a leader is working on something behind the bottleneck, they're not having a very big impact because they're not touching the bottleneck. They'll get to that bottleneck in due time. Like, it will become the bottleneck if it's something they need to work on. But one should always remove the short-term bottlenecks, because you don't actually know what the problems will be down the road.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's important. It's important to understand exactly what your interpretation of bottleneck is, so that we can share that with others. Because one of the biggest challenges, that's why we say stop the bottleneck in your business. And it's we're very system and process driven here, and we absolutely love that. But every system, every process, every bottleneck, once there's something that tweaks to make it better, to be able to open that jam up a little bit, something else is bound to happen. Right? So we consider systems, processes, bottlenecks, living, breathing aspects of doing business. So I totally agree with you that you need to kind of keep that top of mind and go into this understanding that once a bottleneck is knocked down or broken wide open, just like you said, there's probably going to be another one.
Absolutely. I mean, there will always be another one. You cannot guess what the second bottleneck will be until you finish the first, in most cases. So there is, maybe you can look at the second one, but it's really important to stay with all of the research on multitasking. It's super important to stay with the one thing and not to be diverted by 5 or 6 things, because if those 5 or 6 things don't touch the bottleneck, you're only slowing down your progress toward your desired end state or your end goal.
So there are some things that you can learn from the first bottleneck that would help the others, I would assume.
Usually.
Are there any certain indicators that you might be able to highlight that maybe this is something that as business leaders we should look out for?
I think as business leaders, if we're leading a team, if we're leading people, if we have anyone working for us, it's our job to not be the bottleneck. So many organizations are stunted by decision fatigue, where the leader positions themselves as the primary decision maker, and they don't learn how to get out of the way. So they don't empower the people to make, that report to them to make the decisions that need to be made for the business. And they also don't get to those decisions. So they actually become the bottleneck. That's actually the biggest problem, and why I say that leaders should focus on the bottlenecks is they often are the bottleneck. And there's no one that can move them out of the way as the bottleneck.
That's the hardest thing to tell somebody, I would imagine sometimes, or in their shoes, hardest thing to hear maybe sometimes.
I know that when my clients start to realize this, it's like cold water in the face, and then they can never unsee it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you have that with your clients, but as soon as you see it, as soon as you realize you're the bottleneck, you know when you're the bottleneck, and you can't always get out of the way, but you never can stop seeing that you are the bottleneck.
I have to come clean a little bit on this, Melanie. I am not a person that likes confrontation at all. I just don't like it. But I do know that if there's not that level of uncomfortable feeling or something, I'm not moving forward. And if I don't have the wherewithal or the courage to tell somebody what I may see in them, I'm doing a disservice to them. I honestly believe that. And so if over the years, I've kind of gotten a little bit better at it. And I don't know if you can actually get better at it because you still feel guilty. It's kind of scary. But I speak in more generalist terms now when I talk, because there's so many times that's happened where I'm like, You know what? It's probably you are the bottleneck. I say that in general terms, talking on videos or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can picture these people in my head. And the last thing they want to hear is that. But the second they realize it and they get out of their own way, oh my gosh.
It's crazy, right?
What
Like
a
it's
difference.
so crazy, the power. So I have two things to say about that. One is I talk about reactive leadership styles in my book. And being conflict averse is one of them, because conflict averse leaders who don't have those conversations, those hard conversations, create a myriad of chaos on a regular basis in their organizations, because you never know where the bottleneck is going to be around a conversation that needs to be had. And if people avoid those conversations only based on whether or not they have conflict in them, you get a really random result. So, so I'll really challenge you to keep speaking up.
Thank you.
And then the second thing that I want to say is Eliyahu Goldratt, who was the creator. He was an Israeli physicist who actually, the theory of constraints and the idea of bottlenecks that we use in business today was his theory. The theory of constraints is his. And he always said that management attention is the biggest bottleneck in North American companies. And
can you break that down a little bit?
Well, yeah, it's like we think that we have external problems. It's exactly what we're talking about. But people become the bottleneck because they don't pay attention. And this is the focus piece. So if someone, if I know I need to wake up and think about bottlenecks, I need to pay attention as a leader. That's hard work. It's actually hard work to pay attention in our businesses, in our companies, in our leadership. We have to have exquisite control to remind ourselves to pay attention to the things that are important. It's so easy to get distracted by Zoom calls and meetings. And, in COVID, it's like, it could be the kids who are, working in the next room, or the internet connection goes out, or the dog is barking in the front yard, or whatever. It is so hard to stay exquisitely focused on the work that needs to be done today. But that's the heart of where you start to make change. I have an assistant. I have a full-time assistant in my business who I brought on board because I'm launching online courses. And I literally meet with her every single day at 11 o'clock to ask her if there's anything she needs from me to make sure she has work for the day. And if I start to see, and she'll tell me, she has full freedom to tell me when I'm the thing we're waiting on. But my whole goal for my work is to have the vision for the company. Like, I have to do that work too. But I also have the goal of making sure I'm never the one in her way.
See, that's awesome. And I think that's really important to kind of touch on for a second too. Systems and processes are fantastic. They absolutely are fantastic. You have to have systems and processes. However, if as a leader, I'm bogging down any productivity within building up those systems and processes, or trying to get this work done, if I'm the person that's preventing from that project moving forward, I need to quickly reevaluate. So many people talk about working on the business and not in the business. And I'm such a huge raving fan against that notion. Absolutely raging against that thought process. Because if I'm not down in the trenches, how in the heck do I know what the heck is going on? Now, that doesn't mean I need to make sure that I'm looking over everybody's shoulders and getting on to every single detail that they're working on. No, I have confidence in my team. They're going to do that. But what it does mean is that I need to have my finger on the pulse of what's working in business today and what's not. And we need to be able to adjust accordingly. And that's the reason I brought that up. And I wonder, first of all, feel free to disagree with me on any of this, because I would love to be educated. You've been doing this far longer than I. But what do you say about stuff like that?
Well, I think it's really important to figure out the role as a leader. Like, what should you be focusing on? In my book, I have a whole section on intents, where I cover the vision, the mission, the values of the organization. and then strategic intents, operational intents, and tactical intents. And it's really important that the leader be focused on the things that only they can focus on. They are the only ones who are going to do strategy. No matter how bad the strategy of the organization gets, the frontline workers can't change the strategy. So the leader needs to make sure they focus on that part of their work. And if they're working on tactical intents, if they're working on the day-to-day work, so a strategic, a vision statement is probably a 20-year, and it's the vision for how you want the world to be. A mission is, what do you want to do in the world with your business, company, nonprofit, whatever, in the next 10 years. And then the values are good for about 5 years. You want to constantly be reevaluating your values, the way that you do business. But your strategic intents, you need to be doing them regularly, but they should be with a 2-year, 6-month to 2-year timeline. And that's the place that the leader of the organization, the leaders of the organization need to be refreshing on a regular basis. Is what do they hope will happen in the next 2 years? And then they need to be working down with their next layer of management. It may be that they actually have a next layer of management, like a middle manager, or they may just have somebody who functionally is taking on that role. It may be them that's doing the operationalizing of that strategy. Things like budgets fall in operational intents. How much do we intend to spend on marketing? How much do we intend to do something? If you do a podcast, you hope something will happen with that podcast. What do you intend will happen? And then how do you operationalize getting guests, getting social media out, doing all of that? And then each one of those things will have a tactical element, which is, we want 5 social media posts a week. We want this to happen. We want that to happen. We want all of our guests to promote us on social media. Those are all really tactical. And so the leader can get bogged down in the details if they're trying to micromanage the tactical piece. What I've realized recently through some conversations with a client is that probably they haven't trained their people to provide those tactical things in the way that they want them to. You want to learn how to trust the people on the tactical so that you can let go of the tactical. You may have to touch the operational, but not very often, but you want to be focused on that strategic level. And also, I can't say enough how much of a challenge it is to be the face of a brand. Like that takes some real work and has huge value to the organization. And again, it's a job nobody else can do.
It's kind of scary too, right? Though, attaching your face to a brand as opposed to a brand by itself, because now all of a sudden you're not as replaceable, meaning that, if I wanted to move on at one point down the road, I would want the company to stand for what it is, and the processes and all of that stuff. It stands on its own without having the face, attached to it. I think, but on the other end, I understand exactly what it is you're talking about, because, if our business development manager hops on a call with somebody and it goes well, but then he says, "Hey, Jamie, they want to meet you," and I hop on the call, and all of a sudden the deal's closed because it's the owner.
Yeah.
No other reason why. I think that has a lot of power to be behind it, but. So I'm kind of worried about being too much of the face and maybe not enough of the face, because if I do eventually want to exit, I don't want to stay on for another year. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think those are really interesting questions. And again, if your salesperson can't close a deal, then you are the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So but there's huge risk, especially in client acquisition, in not closing the deal if you don't jump on. So it's interesting to start to even ask your clients, what was it that had you need me? You can actually query that and dig into that bottleneck. And that's where my philosophy of experimentation comes into play. You have a clear challenge. You want to not have to show up for every sale. You have a status quo that is, right now you have to show up for almost every sale. What would be the experiments that you could try to get you out of it? And you may fail. Those experiments may fail. At every point, you may have the last ditch effort may be that they have to bring you in. But there may also be something in the way that your sales manager, salesperson is presenting themselves, that they're taking the easy way out. You might bonus them more if they can close the sale. Like there's all sorts of things you can try, right?
Oh yeah.
If you start experimenting, if they can close it without you, they get an extra, I don't know. I like $100. Like $100 is enough. You can go to dinner, but it's not going to hurt you. So it's like, is it the easy way, or is there actually a customer barrier?
I love that.
Excuse me.
I love that. So because we have about 5 minutes left, we'll come up on the end of the half hour here. I want to respect your time there, but I'm wondering, these are all unbelievable tips, and thank you for sharing them. And I like to bring up real world examples, so that these can be addressed accordingly. If people continue to find challenges over and over and over again, it becomes frustrating, more frustrating to them. What is something they can do to kind of get out of that funk of always running into brick walls?
Well, you're going to laugh when I give you my answer. They should either hire an assistant or a coach.
We'll see. I think it's perfect.
So I think they need to evaluate. So I think there's 3 things that it could be. They could not have the knowledge, they could not have the time, or they could not have the mindset. If they have a mindset problem or a knowledge problem, they might hire a coach. If they have a time problem, they need to probably hire someone to take the work off their plate if they're hitting a wall repeatedly. But it's going to be one of those 3 things. It's going to be time, knowledge, or mindset.
I absolutely love that. If it's time, that sounds like you need an assistant.
Yep.
If it's mindset, that sounds like you need the coach.
Yep.
And knowledge, well, heck, that could be a coach too.
It could be a coach. It could be a training. It could be learning. It could be hiring a person who's an expert in your business. Lots of options for these things, but it's probably one of those 3 problems to get through a block. Wow,
and that breaks it down to, it's so simple. So
for me, it's kind of crazy simple, right?
That's my breakthrough of the day.
Good. I'm glad.
By all means.
It was worth the price of admission.
I absolutely love that. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you and learn more?
Sure. They can go to melanieparish.com. And you can email me at melanieparish.com. I've got a reactive leadership styles cheat sheet that I'd be happy to send you the link for. I'll link with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to meet you on LinkedIn. I have a page on Facebook called The Experimental Leader, and I'm Melanie Parish on Twitter. I'm a friend of mine texted me today and said, "You are just everywhere." And, I feel kind of silly about that because I'm kind of shy. So,
well, you kind of have to be though, right?
You kind of have to be, yeah. And you can find my book, The Experimental Leader, on anywhere books are sold. But if you email me, I can also send you a link to a digital book link that you can get it in your hands right away.
Here we go. Well, I'm going to show that one too. The Experimental Leader. That's the name of the book. And I can see it right in the background there.
It is.
Over there. The Experimental Leader. Congratulations on writing a book, by the way.
Thank you. It's crazy. Crazy.
How long has your book been out?
It came out April 7th or something, right smack dab at the beginning of COVID. Crazy experiment to launch a book during a pandemic.
Hey, you're speaking true words though. The Experimental Leader needs an experiment, even for the book launch.
It did. Man, are we experimenting all over the place.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, is there anything else you would like to leave us with before we wrap today?
No, I love that you have a podcast talking about that bottlenecks, are part of your brand. That's really fun. I was really excited when I found this in my calendar. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to just come and talk to people about bottlenecks. I do think that this is one of those hacks. Like if you can really focus on bottlenecks, you want to hack your leadership. This is like the hack. And if you want to know more about that, like schedule a coaching call or read my book. Both will help you. I would love to talk to you about how you can hack your leadership this way, because it's super important and it makes you feel like you've got a superpower.
Well, I've found a new superpower today. If I run into a roadblock, it's because I've lack of knowledge, my mindset isn't right, or I don't have enough time. And I thank you so much for sharing that with me. A serious breakthrough. I can already figure out right now what my next problem is just from those three things right there. So I really appreciate that.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been so fun to talk to you.
It has been. Can you hold on one quick second and I'll go ahead and wrap us up here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Hold on one quick second there. And I just want to say thank you so much to Melanie Parish. Go check it out. It's melanieparish.com, MELANIEPARISH.com. You can also send her an email if you want to, melanie@experimentalleader.com. There's 2 L's in there, so watch for that. You can find her on LinkedIn, Melanie Parish. She's also on Twitter. And email her today and say you'd like a link to her book, The Experimental Leader. And I highly encourage you checking that out. I have a feeling I'm going to be purchasing another book in my near future. And just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. We were talking to Melanie Parish today, who is a master certified coach on why leaders should spend most of their time managing bottlenecks. I absolutely love that. So highly encourage you to reach out to Melanie if you have any other questions about that. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants, or Bottleneck Distant Assistants, as we call them now. And if there's anything else I can do for you, please let me know. Remember one thing: create your own ripple.